Hi there, my name is Anna Mitchell and I am a first year student at La Trobe University studying speech pathology. Today I'd like to talk to you about the deaf community in Australia and get some first-hand information on what it's like to be part of that community. This is Australia. There are 24,700,000 people living here. Of that population, there are 4 million people who are affected by hearing loss, 30,000 of which who have complete hearing loss. These people may be among those that make up the deaf community in Australia. The deaf community is a supportive and an inclusive place in which members typically share similar experiences and values, such as the importance of Auslan. It is viewed as a culture, and many members believe themselves to be bilingual, as they are members of both the hearing and the deaf communities. Not all members of the deaf community are completely deaf, and not all completely deaf people are part of the deaf community. Some people who identify as part of the community have partial hearing loss or have maybe grown up as a hearing member of a deaf family. The common denominator of most members of the deaf community appears to be their value of the language Auslan. This deaf subculture within Australia provides people with hearing impairment extensive support through various endorsed organisations and contacts, and allows for identity and belonging for those suffering from hearing impairment and their families. In an attempt to fully understand what it's like to live with a hearing impairment, I contacted someone called Oliver, who is a friend of mine, on Facebook, and asked him to share with us his experiences. These are his answers to my questions. So I asked Oliver, what is your degree of hearing? How long has it been like this? And Oliver replied, I have profound hearing loss in both ears. In my right ear, I have a cochlear implant that allows me to hear 90% of speech without context, if I wasn't lip reading. In my left ear, I have a hearing aid that is simply a sound amplifier. I need this as, although the implant is brilliant, it produces sound artificially and I can't enjoy music as well as I could. I was born with mild hearing loss and it progressively declined. I asked him, do you identify as part of the deaf community? He said no, although I can see the merits of the community for those that are medically or physically unable to use hearing aids or cochlear implants. What hardships have you experienced as a result of your hearing loss? School during the early years was difficult, as children are less accepting of those that are different. Forming relationships was hard. Do you feel that you get treated differently because of your level of hearing? Oliver said, nah, it's a part of me, so my friends crack a deaf joke every so often. My parents had the same expectations for me as my siblings and didn't treat me any differently. In what ways do you communicate with other deaf people and hearing people? Oliver said, I talk and communicate just like everyone else. However, I do lip read to supplement my hearing. And my last question for Oliver, do you view your level of hearing as a disadvantage? If you could change it, would you? And he said, no, as it has made me appreciate those less fortunate than me. I wouldn't change it as I have treated it as a motivator. I feel my life would be very different if I wasn't hearing impaired. That was Oliver's experience. To gain a different perspective, I interviewed my friend Kaylee, whose younger sister has hearing loss, and I asked her about Millie and of her own experiences. This is my interview with Kaylee.
Kaylee? Good, thanks, Anna. How are you?
Not too bad. So, just to start off with, what percentage of hearing does your sister have? What level of hearing does she have?
So my sister Millie has 60% hearing loss. So we found out when she was pretty young that she wasn't very responsive to things like clapping and clicking when you did it next to her ear. And so we decided to get some tests done, and that led to us finding out that she had 60% hearing loss.
Yeah, wow. Did she experience any difficulties because of her hearing loss?
Probably the hardest thing was when she went to school. So she's got hearing aids in both ears, so she did get bullied a bit for that. She did have some friends prior to school, so that helped. She had like the foundations for friends that helped her cope with the bullying, and just education through the school helped as well. But yeah, she does suffer from bullying every now and then.
Do you think your relationship with Millie is different because of her hearing loss at all?
It definitely is different. I don't know whether that's because of her hearing loss. Like, I've got lots of siblings. It's different with every sibling. I suppose I am a bit more protective of Millie just because she has experienced that bullying, something she can't help. And I also want people to have a greater understanding of her disability.
Do you feel that because of Millie's hearing loss, the doors have been opened to you and your family to the deaf community and culture?
Absolutely. And they've been very welcoming. Learning Auslan was a great experience for my whole family. And just like having that community around you just makes you more aware of how many people actually experience this in their lives, and whether you've got a hearing loss or not, you are welcomed by the deaf community.
Yeah, that's nice to know, actually. Do you feel that the deaf community and Millie receive enough support from non-deaf people and from the wider Australian community?
Look, there is heaps of support. It's just a matter of finding it. It can be a bit difficult to find. At first we did struggle, but once we found we met some deaf people, they sort of like directed us where to go. There also definitely needs to be more funding for people, especially kids with hearing losses, just to help them out a bit as they have their foundational needs.
There's always room to improve, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
And finally, would you or Millie or anyone in your family ever wish that her hearing was perfect?
Look, you have days where you do wish that she didn't have a hearing impairment, but it makes her who she is. And at the end of the day, it's made our family more resilient, and we've come together and become closer and learnt new things, and I think that that's great. So no, at the end of the day, I don't wish that it had changed, because she's going to be whatever she wants to be, no matter what.
Yeah, fair enough. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming and talking.
Thank you for having me.
It's been very insightful. So I hope Millie is successful in her life, no matter what she does.
Thanks.
So that was an interesting insight to two different people's experiences of having a hearing impairment or being close to someone who has a hearing impairment. It's easy to notice that both of them shared similar experiences while they're at school through the bullying of having just simply a hearing impairment or having cochlear implants or hearing aids. Parallel to this, however, the negative effects of the bullying didn't appear to hinder either Millie or Oliver's ability to make friends, and both of them seemed quite happy with their social lives. Neither of them let their level of hearing hold them back from being happy, which is a credit to them both. And so this goes to show that the deaf community is a community that doesn't actually encompass everyone that has a hearing impairment. It's there for those that need it or those that want it. Millie and Kaylee's whole family were welcomed, and they adapted to being part of that new community, whereas Oliver did not identify as being part of the deaf community. I think the most profound statement that can be drawn from both of their experiences is that despite the hardships associated with living with a hearing impairment, it's become such a part of who they are that they would never want it taken away, and that to the point where they value their hearing loss. And so this concludes my investigation into the deaf community and its various members. It's been an incredibly interesting journey to catch a glimpse of how other people lead their lives. And as Kaylee said, now I'm aware of how many people are affected by hearing loss throughout their lives. Thank you very much for listening.